WKYT News starts now with breaking news.
A call for change. For the third night in a row, hundreds of protesters descend on downtown Lexington. Tonight, remarkable images. Police in riot gear stand by as the crowd marches, kneels, and stands in solidarity to call for an end to racial injustice and push for change.
Good evening to you. I'm Amber Philpotts.
And I'm Garrett Weimer. Streets in cities across America are crowded again tonight. Protests are ongoing following the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis last week and Breonna Taylor in Louisville in March.
In Lexington, tonight's protest has stayed calm again so far. Crowds are back in the same area of downtown, marching from Triangle Park down Main Street past the old courthouse and back. We have live team coverage tonight. Our Victor Puente is near Triangle Park. Shelby Smithson is near the old courthouse. We begin our breaking news coverage with Victor Puente. And Victor, what are you seeing right now where you are?
Yeah, I've actually moved down from Triangle Park. I'm in front of police headquarters. You can see a heavy police presence here behind me. That is actually where the protesters had stopped for a little bit. I will say with, all the stories of violent protests from across the country, it's kind of refreshing to see one that aimed to stay peaceful, and so far it has. There was even a moment where the crowd got the police to kneel with them. These protesters were making their way down Main Street. They passed hundreds of Lexington police officers. Those officers were lined up and down the block, and that protest stopped in front of them. There were a few tense moments. Things got vocal. Someone threw a water bottle from the crowd at those officers, hit one of them in the helmet. The rest of the crowd immediately shouted no. They wanted this to stay peaceful, and police didn't react. Then that crowd started chanting, "Kneel with us." They chanted for a few minutes, and then some of those officers started kneeling. At that point, the crowd thanked them. Yeah, and a few seconds after that video, the crowd actually started chanting thank you to all of the officers there for kneeling with them. Now, since then, most of that crowd has moved on down Main Street toward the old courthouse. There were a few people, though, who hung around and just started talking to those officers, having conversations. So obviously a different tone to, some of the more vocal moments before that. Live in Lexington, Victor Puente, WKYT.
Victor, thank you. Some powerful images there. Now we want to get you to Shelby Smithson. She is near the old courthouse on West Main Street. And Shelby, what's it like in your area right now?
Well, Amber, we've actually moved up. I'm in the parking garage right near the Lexington Public Library, trying to give you guys an aerial view of what's going on right now. Now, the major crowd that was at the courthouse has been dispersing at this point. We heard organizers thanking them for coming out tonight, but you can still hear some of the protesters chanting and yelling still in the street where police have Main Street blocked off. Now, they seem to be right in front of a couple of businesses across the street from the courthouse where there was a line of police in riot gear. But even in the more intense moments where protesters got in the faces of several officers, police remained silent. Victor even mentioned some of them kneeling in support, keeping in line with protests from the previous few nights, remaining peaceful, just making their voices heard, just like what one protester who's from Lexington said is his whole reason for joining tonight.
Well, it's the right thing to do. We're bringing attention to what really matters. Black lives matter, all lives matter. We're here to show our support and to grieve over the death, the wrongful deaths, the murders of our brothers and sisters.
Now, there was a fight that broke out at the very beginning, and I have seen some profanity spray painted on some Lexington police signs, but organizers have done what they can, sometimes even stopping the march to try to control the crowd. For now, reporting live in Lexington, Shelby Smithson, WKYT.
Shelby, thank you. And our crews caught another special moment earlier this evening in downtown Lexington as protesters stood just feet from officers in riot gear lined up outside of police headquarters. One of them, you can see in the green shirt there, reached out and shook the hands of several officers. Now, we've seen multiple images like this tonight in downtown Lexington as many in the crowd are trying to keep these protests calm.
Well, it has been a different scene in Louisville. The city is in its fourth night of protest. Dozens of people were arrested there last night.
And the Kentucky National Guard has increased its presence in Kentucky's largest city. WKYT's Grace Feinerman is at the live desk now tracking what's going on in Louisville. She continues our team coverage.
Well, it's after 11, meaning more than 2 hours have gone by with Louisville's curfew in effect. Still, protesters have been walking around in downtown Louisville. So far, it seems this is the calmest it's been in days. A protest turning restless in Louisville. This evening at around 8:30, a man with a leaf blower is confronted by officers. Protest Sunday started peacefully, signs saying white silence is violence, enough is enough, and police the police, seen across the streets. At around 3 Sunday afternoon, crowds gathered outside the KFC Yum Center in Louisville for a healing ceremony. It was organized by Black Lives Matter Louisville to stand together, sing together, pray together, and heal together.
It was highly needed. We just came from an entire weekend of chaos. And, on Sunday, it was like we just need to be able to come together and have a calm, someone to be able to lead this and have a calm talk and speech and just let everyone know that all of that chaos isn't needed and we can get the same point across by having something like this. And showing love. Sunday morning, Mayor Greg Fisher said 40 arrests have been made in response to Saturday night's protests in Louisville. He says 3 officers were shot at, but none of them were injured. Still, the mayor says last night was more peaceful than the nights before. In an interview with Wave 3 News, Breonna Taylor's family shares they're for protest and reform, not destruction.
It can be peaceful. You can make a difference in numbers. You don't have to make it violent.
Again, the dusk to dawn curfew in Louisville remains in place tonight. Obviously, last night it didn't stop protests from happening. The National Guard has more than 400 guardsmen in Louisville right now, hoping to keep the peace. At the live desk, Grace Feinerman, Wkyt.
Grace, thank you. Governor Andy Beshear said this morning he understands people in Kentucky want to be heard as they protest against racial injustice. He said Breonna Taylor's family has been clear that they want the truth and justice, but they don't want more violence.
In these times, there are folks out there that want to cause violence that can hurt everybody. And I want to make sure that that does not happen and that we honor this family's wishes. As we move forward, while I admit I will never understand or be able to fully feel these feelings of injustice and frustration and fatigue, my commitment is to do everything I can to create a better world, a more just world moving forward.
The governor asked those who continue to protest to protect themselves from the coronavirus by social distancing and wearing masks.
This weekend, we have seen protests across the state and across the nation. Thousands of people pressing city and state leaders for change.
And many more are continuing this evening. Michael George is in Minneapolis with the latest on the protests following the death of George Floyd.
George Floyd! From chants of George Floyd in the nation's capital. No justice, no peace! To no justice, no peace in Charlotte. Rallying cries could be heard across the U.S. again Sunday. Dozens of American cities, including Los Angeles, Chicago, Madison, Wisconsin, and Pittsburgh, dug out from the aftermath of several nights of sometimes violent protests.
How do we transform the systems of institutional racism that have stolen the lives of our loved ones over generations? Certainly not by setting businesses on fire and smashing windows.
I'm so angry. It's my life. I put everything in here.
The National Guard Sunday continued to patrol the streets of Minneapolis.
Okay, we're getting tear gas sent our way. We're going to back up a little bit.
It's here that the death of George Floyd during an arrest on Memorial Day set off a tidal wave of anger that rippled coast to coast.
We're not given certain opportunities to help us grow, and the only thing we're given is a way to die.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz extended the 8 p.m. curfew in the Twin Cities.
If we do not get to that systemic problem, eventually this will get us back to a point that led to our communities on fire, our security and safety in question, and a searching for who we are.
Violence broke out Sunday after an interstate was shut down and a semi-truck drove through the crowd. Video shows protesters chasing the truck down and apparently beating the driver. Michael George, CBS News, Minneapolis.
Officials say the truck driver is in custody after being taken to the hospital and released. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on Sunday called for standardized police misconduct policies across America. And incidents like what happened in Minneapolis today have been happening in nearly every city. Dozens of reports of incidents that led to injuries.
Like Friday in Bowling Green, where police say a man is in custody after they say he hit a woman with his truck. Those with the NAACP say they are looking into incidents like those across the country.
So those situations hopefully will not be repeated. NAACP is going to look at all of those as the national and states do their work. We've had a call a couple nights ago with the national and state NAACP president, as well as the branch leaders in each one of those states: Georgia, New York, Minnesota, and here in Louisville. And they are on the boots on the ground working, trying to figure out, best ways to make this peaceful protest so that we don't have incidents like Louisville, Minnesota, where there's obviously anger and pain. So.
Officials in Bowling Green said last night's protest was a peaceful one where the group gathered to sing and reflect. During days of unrest, a moment of solidarity in New York earlier today. These members of the NYPD knelt with demonstrators who were protesting the death of George Floyd. Aaliyah Abram shot this video. She runs the Black Resource Network in Queens, which held the peaceful demonstration. When the march reached the 103rd precinct, a pastor in the group asked officers to join them. Several not only entered the demonstrator circle, but also knelt on the ground. Ahead, we continue our coverage as people continue to march downtown to make their voices heard.
And we're tracking more dry days ahead, but that summer sizzle is just right around the corner. I'll tell you when all that arrives. Coming up after the break.
Just Adam Burniston.
We have been seeing a nearly perfect day out there today. Low humidity levels are highs only into the lower 70s, mid 70s in some of the parts of the Commonwealth. And now tonight, almost a bit of a chilly feel out there, and it's only going to be getting cooler as we head into Monday morning. Current temperatures right now are in the mid 50s, some upper 50s out there as well for some areas, but generally we are seeing really nothing around even much of the United States. You're seeing a little bit of rain out to the west. That warm front will be affecting our forecast as we go ahead of this week. But generally speaking, we are seeing dry conditions until that change comes in the forecast. We'll get to that here soon, but taking hour by hour through tonight into tomorrow morning, models putting those temperatures all the way down at the mid to lower 40s here in the forecast, and that's going to be a bit of a chilly start. As we go throughout the afternoon into the evening hours, we have mid to upper 60s turning into the mid 70s. So a lot like we saw today, maybe a touch warmer, as we could see a few upper 70s there in southern Kentucky, but those cool winds shifting out of the north, starting to move a little bit out of the east by tomorrow. We go into Tuesday and you see a little bit more cloud cover out there, temperatures a little bit more mild, and those winds continue to shift then out of the south, and you see what happens with those temperatures as well. Models trying to get it into the mid 80s. Earlier they were only showing lower 80s, but I do think we'll see more on that lower 80 trend. As we look at this little bit of a change in the forecast, like I was saying, high pressure moves out to the east. That provides some southerly winds back into the area. With that comes the humidity and that warmth, and also thunderstorm chances coming in here late Wednesday and into Thursday. You'll notice, though, it's really scattered, not really an organized system here. It's like we saw last week, where it's going to be hit and miss showers, thunderstorms throughout the week. You get under those storms, though, and it can really dump some rain down on you. So we're going to be watching that in the forecast, but generally speaking, temperature is going to be back into the mid 80s, lower 80s through much of next week with those thunderstorms coming in. So if you have any other projects to do outdoors, you still have 3 dry days here in the forecast through Wednesday, and then those temperatures starting to get a little bit on that summer side.
All right, Adam, thank you so much. We continue to monitor those protests continuing in downtown Lexington tonight.
And we're going to check back in with Victor Puente. He's live at the Courthouse Plaza. Victor, tell us what's happening there now.
Yeah, the crowd has moved down from in front of police headquarters, so they are now here at Courthouse Plaza on the other side of that crowd now. There's a line of police. There are people chanting at them. And so it's been, a very vocal crowd out here tonight. But so far, everything has remained peaceful. I'm out here with Alex Walker. I got here a little bit before 9, but Alex, you've been out here since 7. Is that what you said? So you've seen some pretty powerful moments tonight.
There were some powerful moments, and let's start with this. Over the last 3 hours, like you said, it's been very peaceful dialogue between the protesters and the police. We saw a really special moment. There was a moment in time when everyone was getting very loud. They said, "Kneel with us. Please kneel." The protesters to the police, they wanted them to kneel with them in solidarity.
The chant went on for a few minutes.
And then they did kneel. The entire police line kneeled with the protesters. And then earlier in the day, we saw a very special moment as well. We saw an individual go down the line and shake every single police officer's hand. And that was really special to witness too. And we also had a really neat moment too. After the police officers did kneel with all the protesters, actually a single police officer actually stepped across the line, joined the protesters, and then sat down and kneeled with the protesters. And they really enjoyed that, to see that, because a lot of the dialogue has been peaceful. It's been encouraging. They're just trying to tell them, look, love us, we'll love you, and that's kind of been the message throughout this evening.
And that's one of the things you see, nationwide. We've seen a lot of really violent protests, just stuff that's been hard to watch. Out here, that hasn't been the case, and it's kind of been good to see the way that Lexington has responded to this. People are vocal, they've got a message, they've got things that they want to see change, but at the same time, it's been very peaceful tonight.
We also saw a police officer as well start handing out hugs to the protesters as well, at least on my side of the line. Like you said, very peaceful dialogue, which has been so good to see. We did see a minor brush up of people running across the intersection right down here. Yeah. But outside of that, it has been very calm. The leaders at the top of this protest have been saying, look, guys, stay as a unit, get our message across. We want it to be peaceful. We want everyone to go home tonight safe and sound. And that has been from the top of this group protesting here in Lexington.
All right, Alex, thank you all very much. We're going to stay out here keeping an eye on what all happens tonight. But for now, we'll toss it back to the studio. Live in Lexington, Victor Puente, Wkyt.
Victor and Alex, thank you. It wasn't just Lexington holding protests today. Earlier this evening, dozens gathered outside the Georgetown courthouse. This video was sent to us by a viewer just driving by. You can see people holding signs and yelling for support. There were no reports of any issues at that protest. No new state COVID-19 numbers released today, but a change is coming for Governor Beshear's news conference starting tomorrow. That reminder just ahead. The state did not release updated COVID-19 case numbers today. So for now, the state's total holds at 9,704. 431 Kentuckians have died because of the virus. More than 3,200 COVID-19 patients in the state have since recovered. The governor's next update, remember, is scheduled for 4 p.m., not 5 tomorrow.
Jackson Manor was hit hard with patients and workers testing positive for COVID-19. More than 60 people in Jackson County tested positive for COVID-19, and the majority of those were at the Jackson Manor nursing home. Unfortunately, 13 residents there died from complications due to the coronavirus.
But there is some good news of recoveries. Dakota Macrae's talked with a Jackson County judge executive and has more.
A quiet road with healing behind these walls.
They've had multiple celebrations for everybody that's recovered from coronavirus.
Judge Executive Shane Gabbard visited the nursing home last week and saw relief.
They were very, very excited, very peaceful. It's like finally they get to step back and take a deep breath and say, okay, we've made it through the worst of the storm.
As Judge Executive,
when your people are hurting, you're hurting with them. And when they're happy, you're happy with them.
He is happy to know people are recovering.
Transitioning into a sense of being hopeful from being hopeless. Say, hey, we made it through this. We're resilient people. We're going to be fine.
And a community coming together.
If anything else, people are more educated now on what I need to do to protect my family and to take care of my colleagues.
The nursing home finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, at least 11 residents and 21 staff members at Jackson Manor have recovered.
Officials nationwide prepared for a 6th day of protest with curfews in more than a dozen cities. The latest ahead.
Today was a sixth day of protest in parts of the country in response to the death of George Floyd. In some major cities, daytime demonstrations remain peaceful.
Others, like Louisville and Cincinnati, have announced nighttime curfews in the hopes of a quieter night. Daryl Forges reports from Minneapolis.
We just want justice for George Floyd.
Demonstrators trying to keep the focus on George Floyd.
We have to call for more serious charges. That's the bottom line here.
And the issue surrounding his death in Minneapolis police custody.
The fatigue and the fact that we as African Americans are tired and frustrated of the treatment of white police officers in this country.
Officials across the country expressed their hopes for a quieter night. In Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti said those who engage in destruction and vandalism Saturday need to stop.
They have not just caused chaos and damage. They are hijacking a moment and a movement and changing the conversation.
Cities from Atlanta to Miami to San Francisco have Sunday night curfews. That includes Chicago, where Mayor Lori Lightfoot urged against the violence of Saturday night.
Think about tomorrow for you, for your families, for your loved ones, and for your city.
Illinois and Minnesota are among states that have activated the National Guard to help respond to the unrest. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, I'm Daryl Forges.
In less than 3 minutes, we'll take you back out downtown to give you another look as protests continue. Stay with us. It is a third night of protest in downtown Lexington.
And we're going to check back in with Victor Puente. He's live at Courthouse Plaza. Victor, tell us what's happening now. Is anything quieting down out there?
Yeah, I've just moved down from the Courthouse Plaza. I'm in front of police headquarters. You can still see a large police presence here behind me. Main Street still shut down. Now they have, this is just around the corner from the Courthouse Plaza. As I said, the majority of the protesters are now up there around the street. Now, a few hours ago, that protest stopped here in front of these officers. At one point, someone threw a water bottle. They hit one of the officers in the head. Police didn't react. And then the crowd shouted that person down. They let them know that they wanted this to remain peaceful. Then those protesters, they started chanting, "Kneel with us," to the police. And after a few minutes, the officers did. And then after that, there was a moment of gratitude.
Thank you, LPD!
Now, once that was over, a lot of that crowd dispersed from here in front of the police department, but a few people hung around and just started talking to police. There were some conversations going on, some of them uncomfortable, some people pretty angry, but you could tell that people were able to just express their emotions, and some of that is even still going on. I can hear some people screaming down the road, but again, so far everything has remained peaceful out here tonight. Live in Lexington, Victor Puente, WKYT.
Victor, thank you. And we now want to get back out to Shelby Smithson. She's near the old historic courthouse on West Main Street. And Shelby, what's it like where you are?
Well, Garrett, we've moved back down to Limestone just across from the courthouse. There was a little bit of a false alarm when we saw a bunch of people run across the intersection and police in riot gear follow them over here. But it seemed to be just a misunderstanding. Now you can see it's a little less organized out here. Organizers thanked protesters for coming out about half an hour ago, and some people started dispersing, but still the crowd right now in front of the courthouse. They've been chanting and screaming just a little bit now. We've been talking about how peaceful these have remained, and that's still largely the case. Now, there have been a couple of firecrackers set off just in an empty intersection not near anyone right beside us, and I have seen profanity spray painted on a few Lexington police signs, but those videos of police kneeling with protesters and some even hugging the protesters really speak for themselves. For now, reporting live in Lexington, Shelby Smithson, WKYT.
Shelby, thank you again. This is the third night, but Garrett, so many people are using these nights to make their voices heard, but we're thankful that they're doing so peacefully, and thanks to our crews out there bringing us the sights and sounds from downtown.
Exactly. So glad that everyone to this point has been able to stay safe, an important part of making sure that your voice is heard. So thank you to, yes, absolutely, our crews out there in the field tonight. And thank you for joining us. We will continue to monitor these protests throughout the night, so stay tuned to WKYT.com and our social media channels in the meantime. Have a good night. Stay safe.